Hi friends, this is Jitesh. Welcome to Azure Data Factory training sessions. So this session will talk about multiple points. We'll see how we can call store procedure from lookup activity and create pipeline parameters, pass this parameter to the store procedure, retrieve the result back to the lookup activity, and pass these values to the next activity of Azure Data Factory. Also, we can look into how we can convert CSV files into GZIP format while storing into Azure Data Lake Gen 2. This is very important because some files which is coming from the source systems will be very huge in size, and if you use compression like GZIP, you can save the space, right? And finally, we look into how we can standardize this pipeline, meaning how we can use the same pipeline for multiple feeds. So only prerequisite for this session is I'm assuming that the audience have a basic understanding of Azure Data Factory, Azure Cloud Storage, what are the different storage system available in Azure, and also Azure SQL DB. So Azure SQL DB is normal standalone SQL server database. So I hope most of the people are aware of Azure SQL DB or SQL Server, whatever, right? So to go over the examples, I'm giving you three tables, that is source, feed, and feed parameter. This is a live example. I took it from my project. These tables are part of the ETL framework, but I'm not going to explain each and every table of the framework. That I can explain in different session, because that framework will be helpful for you to control the entire ETL process. But for this demo, I'm using only three tables. Okay, source will store all the master details of source, and one source may have multiple feeds. So I created another table called feed. Feed will have feed ID to represent the feeds uniquely, and another is source ID. Source ID is to connect to the source master so that we can understand what are the feeds related to so and so source. Then finally the feed, and we have another table called feed parameter. Feed parameter stores all the relevant parameter values required for feed for running the entire data movement from source systems to the target. Okay. So I just captured one screenshot here. Then after this, we'll directly go to the code. So for this demo, I created two activities inside the pipeline. One is lookup activity, which calls the store procedure to pick up the um, uh, feed parameter values. This parameter passes the parameter pipeline parameter to this store procedure and retrieve the result. And the retrieved result will be passing into the next activity, that is move to row, and it will execute the pipeline. Okay, so let's go to the actual code. So let me show you the field, table name and the field, and also the values which I stored here. So this is the first one, source. I created only one source. Source ID is one and the source name is taxi. And if you look at feed, currently for this demo I created only one feed. There may be multiple feed in real projects, right? So you have one feed, one source ID, and the feed name is legal business. Now look at the feed parameter. What are the values that I stored here? There are four values I stored. One is target path name, where we need to store the retrieved files, and source file, where we need to go and pick the source file. target file where exactly we need to store the file after processing, and finally the source, legal business. So this is the folder name where we will be receiving the source file name. Okay, and you can look at this. There is another character I included along with the file names. So this is required. uh, See this one. These characters are required to rename the file name based on the date. Okay, so let's go to the source systems. Um, okay, so here in the real scenario, I may be getting the files from FTP, or directly I'll be picking it from web service. But for this demo, I created the source file in blob storage. So what I did is I created two blob storage, right? One is Gen2 and one is normal blob storage. So this blob storage will be acting as my source system. So here, if you go to the storage explorer, you can find out what are the files I'm going to retrieve it from. Lab. So I have the file system called lab. Inside lab, I have legal business. Let's go back to the database. See, you can see this legal underscore business. This is the same name that we saw in the blob storage, right? If you go here, this is the legal business. If you go inside, you can see multiple files starting from legally operating business 2000 to 2019. So legally operating business, that is common across all the files. Only changing pattern is the year number 2000, 2001 to 2019, right? So to accommodate this value, I created this character, and in the store procedure I will be replacing this particular value using the parameter. Parameter is year. Year will be passing as a parameter, right? Let me open that procedure. Not sure whether I kept it here. Yeah. So this is the store procedure. USP feed parameter values. Okay. So this accept two parameters, that is feed ID and the year. What exactly it is doing, there may be another method also to complete the same activities. Every programmer is different, right? So for this demo I use this particular method. There may be some other method, but my main intention is to showcase how we can use Azure Data Factory to call store procedure, not the performance optimization or the best method to create store procedure. So um, what here I'm doing is I'm just getting the file, I'm declaring the file path, file name, source file name, and source path, and retrieving the values from the feed parameter table. Okay, and look at here. So here what I'm doing is I'm replacing these values from the parameter values. Okay, so that will continue for target file as well as source file. So let's execute that procedure and see what we are getting it, right? So you can see how it is generated. I passed 2000, right? So that character is replaced with 2000. So you understood the basic purpose of this store procedure, right? Now we'll go back to the Azure Data Factory and see how we can call this from the Data Factory and retrieve the result. Now, this is a lookup activity. This one you will get it from uh, general, under general category of the activities. Just click this one and drag and drop here, right? Here you can rename it whatever the name you want. Okay, and these are the other settings you may want to use it, but here I'm not going to use any of these properties. I'm keeping it as default. We have timeout, retry interval, this and all common properties that we have seen in our normal traditional ETL tools, correct? And let's go to the settings, and in the settings you need to select the app configuration database. Okay, so here if you click on open, you can see I have created the link service. Link service is connected to this database, that is app configuration, and this is my server, SQL server. Okay, then the important thing that we need to see is the um, uh, schema portion. I'm not importing any schema, and here the parameter also nothing. I'm not going to pass any parameter to this configuration. So just created the link service connected to the database, that's it. Okay, and now here you have three options. One is table, one is query, and store procedure. So that you can select this option based on your requirement. In this demo I'm using store procedure, so I selected store procedure and pass the store procedure value name here. Okay, if you want to pass it dynamically, you can select it and click on this add dynamic content. Based on some criteria, if you want to call different procedures, you can give it as a variable and pass the procedure name. But here I'm going to use the same procedure, and this is common across every pipeline because it's part of the framework. Okay, then this procedure accepts two parameters, correct? So I have created two parameters. Either you can create it manually or you can click on import parameter. So based on this store procedure, it pick up all the parameter and display here, right? So in this procedure accepts feed ID and the year. But how we can pass the values? Here is a catch, right? So this pipeline, while executing from the beginning itself, should accept two parameters, that is feed ID and the year. For that, you click outside of this um, activities, that is click on this white space, go to this parameter and add two parameter here. One is feed ID and the year. Okay, feed ID is integer and year is string. You can give the default value also here. Okay, then again we'll go back to lookup, and now you need to set the feed ID and the year from the parameter, pipeline parameter. So you click on this. Um, once once you create the parameter, pipeline parameter, those parameter will be appearing here under the parameter session. You just click on feed ID, that will appear here. For example, I deleted the current value and click here, this will appear here. Okay, the same way you can create the year also. So we got the parameter, we created the pipeline parameter. Now this is how we can pass the values of the pipeline parameter to the store procedure. Okay, so once the store procedure retrieve the value, um, if you go back to the store procedure, right, we are getting it in one line, only one row. So what we can do is you need to select first row only. We need only first row. So just select this one. I'll talk about how we can retrieve multiple values and make use of the values in a different session. But for this demo, let's focus only on the first row, right? Now look at the next copy data. This is the actual copy data from source system, source file to the target file. So you have seen the source systems, right? It is 2000, 2001, 2002, which is stored inside legal underscore business of the lab system of the blob storage. Um, so I'm just going to close this. Let's go to the uh, Gen 2, the target storage system. Okay, here I created lab. Inside lab I have raw as well as processed, right? I'm going to retrieve the files from the legal business of blob storage and going to store it here in raw. Inside raw I have two files, src1 and taxi, right? So inside taxi I'm going to store it. Here we have legal business. That's what uh, target see. If you look at the target path, you can see raw, taxi, legal business, raw, taxi, legal business. So click on this legal business. Here I already stored one file for testing of this entire pipeline, which is already stored here with the 2000.gzip file. Look at the size of the file. It is 112.6 kb. It reduced a lot, right? Let's go to the source file and see what is the size of the file. So you can understand how beneficial to convert CSV into um, GC file. See, look at the size, it's 1.3 MB. So 1.3 MB is converted into KBs, right? Okay. So now you're clear about where we are going to store, what is the source system we are going to pick, and how we are going to store it. We are going to store use as a GC file, converting from CSV file to GC files, and why we are converting to reduce the um, burden of storage, right? Okay. Now come here. Let's explain what exactly doing in the copy data. Okay, here as usual, you can give the name of the activity, and this is the same properties which I'm not going to change. Let it be default. And we have two extra settings here: source settings and sync settings. Sync is the target, source is the source system settings, right? Now look at the source data set. I created the data set first. We'll go to the data set and see what is there in that. So this is a delimited text source format is delimited text CSV file, and here I given the dataset name, and in the connection you need to give the link service which is connecting, which is pointing to blob storage. Okay, so let's go there. So this is my blob storage. I'm not using Azure Key Vault. I use directly. I'll explain Azure Key Vault in later different sessions. Okay. Now, so this is the path. So file path we have two. Before that, let me explain the parameters. Before passing, if this has to be appear here like a file path, you need to create two parameters here. You This parameter will accept the values from the incoming um, parameter values, right? So to accept the parameters, first we need to create two parameters: src file path and src file name. You can give any name. I just given as src file path and name. Now go to the connection. Here you need to select the parameter source file name or source file path which is accepting the value from here. I'll explain how the values will come to this parameter later. Okay, now go to the connection. So we are good. We given the file path and file name, and what else? Okay, so the compression type Compression type I kept it as none because it is fine to accept the normal file system which is there inside the source system, right? So I'm not going to change anything here. Now let's go to the target one. Okay. No, before going to target, let me explain how we are passing the values to the parameter that we created. These are the src file path and src file name. These are the two parameters that we created inside the connection, right? Now we need to pass the values. How we are passing the values? By using this. So you can see the previous activity will be appearing here, that is activity output. So just select the parameter values. Okay, then once you select, you will be, let me cancel this, delete this. Okay, now come back here, just select here, right? So once you select, you will get this much value, meaning the get the output of this activity. And what we need to do, we need to get the first row of that, first row of the result set and the um, field name, that is source path. Okay, the same way we can give it for source file name, activity first row and the source file name. So you all set for source. The next is sync also we need to. Okay, here one of the important portion that I need to cover is click on the open, then go to the connection settings. These settings are same like file path. We need to create the parameter from here. We will be creating target file name and target file path. Go to the connection and we will be adding the file path and name here. It's the same as source system settings. The only difference here is compression type. So compression type I selected here, it is GZIP. There are other options also there. I'll explain those different options with different example in different session. Okay, so for this I selected GZIP and we can make it as compression level optimal. Then the balance properties you don't need to change, we'll keep it as same because it's coming as a comma separator. You don't need to change anything. If you find that a row delimiter is something different, you can select that, but for me it is the default one, so I'm leaving as it is. Encoding, escape character, caught character, everything is default for now, and I'm saying that first row is a header, so I mark it as header. Now so the settings for this target connection is over. So we have seen source connection setting, target connection settings, then how we can create the parameter, how we can pass the parameter to the store procedure, how we can retrieve it, everything, right? Now go back to the pipeline. Okay, so now you're ready to execute this and the file will move from source system to the target system. So one thing I would like to stress here is this pipeline can be used for multiple fields uh, to move the data from source system to the target if the source system is same, right? If the source system is same different, then we need to um, convert that also into a um, dynamically changing variable, then proceed. But for this, if the source system is blob storage, we can use all the feeds to use the same template because we parameterized everything, and based on the feed parameter we can retrieve the values and pass to the activities, right? Now let's execute this. I'm going to debug this. So feed id is 1, year is 2001. because 2000 I already loaded. Let's finish this. Okay, just refresh. First portion is completed. If you look at the parameter that is passing, so you can see 2001. See, target file name, it is converted as 2001, and the target path name is legal business inside taxi inside a row folder, and the source path is legal business, right? um, so I think we completed it. No, it's still in queue. So if you want to see what's happening here, you can click on here this button. It will show you what exactly happening inside the pipeline. So currently it is pulling the data from Azure Blob Storage to Azure Data Lake Storage Gen 2. Okay, so look at the size. Data read is 28.347 MB and return is 8.52. Because why it is reduced the size? Because of GZIP. It compressed the file and stored in the uh, target system. Okay, let's go to the this one, and let's see how it is stored. Go to the gen 2 storage system. Open storage explorer, then go to the file system, click on lab, click on row, taxi, legal business. You can see 2001 file is already came here. Okay, so we, as I pointed out, we have covered how we can call the store procedure from lookup activity, how we can create pipeline parameter, how we can pass the parameter to the store procedure and retrieve the result and pass to the next activity, how we can convert the source format from CSV to the GZIP format, and how we can standardize the pipeline for using with multiple feeds. All right, so that's it for today in this session. Thank you very much for listening to this. If you like this session, please comment below, and also let me know what exactly you would like to see more. So thank you very much. See you next session. Bye.